And you're welcome back to Off the Ball here on News Talk. Off the Ball Saturday, and John Duggan with you through until 8 this evening on an extended show, because we're going to bring you live commentary later of Munster's game away to Exeter in the Champions Cup. But right now, this is Football Saturday. Remember, Football on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Don't miss Villa versus Spurs on Saturday Night Football, live only on Sky Sports. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball, listen on News Talk, watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. We're joined in studio by Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist, and on the line as well by the former Republic of Ireland international David Meyler and the UEFA Pro Licence coach Shane Keegan. David and Shane, how are we getting on?
Not too bad at all, JD. Yourself?
Yeah, good lads, good.
Good lads, yeah. No, all good.
Are we speaking to Johnny there before the race, the Grand National? It's 5:15. He's got Longhouse Poet. David, would you have a flutter around the National every year?
I do, yeah. No, not every year. My daughter's picked out Dingo Dollar and my son has picked out Eclair Surf. So they're the winners.
Chance. Eclair Surf's got a chance, definitely. And Dingo Dollar ran well last year in the Scottish National. Shane Keegan, are you one of these people who gets involved in the National?
Oh, I certainly am, John. Yeah, I have two done, Commodore, and I'm the same as Johnny. I'm on Longhouse Poet as well, so I am. But I was amazed to hear Johnny say he's never had the winner in.
No, you weren't.
I was 20. You're the experts. You'll tell me what year this was. But I remember being 20 years old, and I was set to fly off to Australia for a year on the Monday, and on the Saturday I had 20 quid on Red Marauder at 33-1. Gave me €660 into my pocket just when I needed it, heading off for Australia, John.
Ah, brilliant stuff. 2001, and it was in probably the worst conditions I've ever seen for a horse race.
That's right.
2001.
Didn't bother me.
Yeah. No, that's already out for a few Fosters and 4Xs.
I love the way Shane says, "Oh, I was 20." You can do the math, Shane, and work out the year. You know how old you are. You don't need to show your age.
That is a valid point. David. In fairness.
Don't be looking for the lads for a bit of help to remember the year.
Yeah, this is the problem when you're on the wrong side of 40, lads. I can tell you that for nothing.
Well, the wrong side of 40 isn't necessarily being in your early 40s. It's been like, your late 40s. So as in, like, if you're early 40s,
okay, that's all right then. That's definitely giving me some solace and comfort here today.
Better off being 41 than, not being there. So, lots of positives.
Yeah, no, it's great to be alive. It's great to be Frank Lampard as well today, lads. 1-0 for Everton over Man United. He's given it the big one. He's not going to get sacked now. David, I saw Seamus Coleman, your buddy there, giving it socks to the fans, and he didn't play against Burnley, and it's important to have Seamus there today because Everton need fight, they need battle.
Yeah, no, they do, and that's something Seamus brings in abundance. Certainly with, you looked at Everton, you're looking around that team and you're kind of saying who's going to roll their sleeves up, and I don't think anyone would question Seamus and his character. I think he's pivotal to them. You could see from his performance today, even at the end there, running over, I imagine his wife and kids were there. He was blowing a few kisses to the crowd, but it's excellent performance. And, I think the players feed off that. And I do think when he doesn't play, they miss him.
It's really important for them to have those kind of Saturday lunchtime games. It seems to me that it's a club that once you get the atmosphere going, I don't know from playing there if you'd feel the same, David, but they need to kind of thrive off something, because if they're not, then it can go south pretty quickly.
Like any time I've ever played there, it's always been a very difficult place to go. First time I kind of played there would have been when they were under David Moyes. It was always a horrible place to go. It's one of those old traditional grounds. It's tight to the pitch. The old Evertonians are loud and they're vocal. And I think they've kind of almost lost a bit of that this season. And you could certainly see from today that, the crowd got behind them. But it also comes down to the players have got to give the crowd something to get behind. And you could see that even towards the end there with Damari Gray making blocks and tackles and all that. That's the fight you need when you're in a relegation battle. Everyone's got to, roll their sleeves up. Everyone's got to be willing to do their bit, for the cause. And certainly that performance is something to build on after the disappointment against Burnley.
I don't know. I'm kind of speculating here, but like, the atmosphere at a lot of Premier League games is not great, and a lot of it is day trippers and all that, but like Liverpool is a proper working class city, and I'd say Everton fans are basically, an awful lot of them are just local hardcore Everton fans.
It's the people's club.
The people's club. Yeah. And like, it's always struck me of the grounds in the Premier League, it's basically well up there in terms of noise, and the place was rocking today. Like, it really does matter to them, and like for Everton to get relegated would be a horrible thing. And it kind of, like some of these early games, JD, there's no atmosphere atmosphere at all at them. It's kind of like slumber, but the place was alive today, and it's a fascinating narrative. I mean, before we even get to Man United, that Seamus Coleman could hopefully help Everton stay up and Lampard in his job, but like Goodison Park is a proper football ground and a throwback to the old days.
Well, they're fighting for their lives because they haven't been in this position, these players, Shane, yeah?
Yeah, there was only 30,000 in it today. I couldn't get over that. Now, I know Goodison is only 40,000 capacity, but there was only 30,000 people there. That seemed an unbelievably low attendance at a Premier League game against Manchester United to me. You could somewhat understand it if it was against a less glamorous side, but
that must
I
be
found
a mistake,
that extremely low when it was announced.
Yeah, I'd say that must be a mistake.
31,000 was announced over the tannoy, Johnny.
Wow.
Okay, well, we'll check that out. We'll clarify that and see what the deal was. But ultimately, they won. Why did they win, Shane?
Why did they win? Because a couple of individuals, for a start, I suppose, had really, really good games. Obviously, the goal scorer, Gordon, was really, really excellent. The left back, Mikolenko, if I'm pronouncing it right, I thought he was very, very good as well, David. I don't know what you thought. Fabian Delph was another one who had a good game. But I hate to say it because there's very few players in the Premier League that really, really make me grit my teeth when I look at them. But Jordan Pickford is top of that list. I have to say, he just rubs me up the wrong way. I don't know the man at all, but just the appearance of him. But he was excellent today. Today. He made 3 really, really top-notch saves for them, and that had a huge role in it. But look, they were decent today. I would put the result down more to the failings of Manchester United than I would to any tremendous performance from Everton. We can get into the United side of things in a minute, but look, Everton did enough, but it was Pickford who got him over the line for me.
Yeah, and Delph came into the middle because he hasn't been playing a lot recently, David.
No, he hasn't. That's his first game since December, and I thought he was excellent. Obviously, I think it was Martin Keown gave him man of the match, but I definitely think his performance was controlled. He was disciplined, broke up United's flow well, won the ball back, kept it simple when he was on the ball. It's one of those, JD, where you see a player with experience kind of coming in and adding a bit of calmness, and he certainly had that in his performance. And look, you could kind of go through all the Everton players. I think there was a lot more fighting character in them. When balls coming into the box, you see the defenders heading balls, blocking them, and they were good value.
53106, Jay's lads, wrong side of your 40s and your 50s. And classic Shane Keegan, John wins a small fortune, leaves the country, so doesn't have to buy anybody a pint. Says Adrian and Leash.
Shane's not the worst for buying a pint, to be fair.
That's classic. That's a classic. I think you might know Adrian Leash. I'm sure he wouldn't.
I do. Another Spurs fan, John. Spurs fan.
Marcus Alonso, by the way, scored for Chelsea. They're 1-0 up away to Southampton. David, you've been in this kind of position before. Are there do's and don'ts in terms of a player's mentality when it's coming to survival and staying up and doing the right things? Because Burnley the other night had the fight, Everton had it today. Leeds are not safe completely. They're playing at the moment. I thought it was interesting what Sean Dyche said, because he didn't think Everton were up for it the other night. He didn't feel that he knew a way to win. When you get the air to thinner air, are there things you need to do as a player?
Do the basics right, JD.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it comes down to that. Lads end up trying to be better than they are, or trying harder than they can, instead of just like, you look at Bruno today. He's doing everything everywhere instead of doing his own job in that number 10 and being creative. He's kind of popping up, getting the ball off the back four. It kind of ends up like when you're in a relegation battle. Lads, you just need to do your job, and you need to identify, if I'm a defender, if I'm a fullback, I go up against my winger. You look at that and can I get the better of him? That was the kind of stuff we always lent against. Am I doing my job and being, getting on top of the other midfielder, and stuff like that, because it is tough. The games are running out, and if you haven't won enough games all season, Sean Dyche's comment, I would say, was more for the Burnley players to kind of rally them up as opposed to a dig at Everton. But there's going to be all things said, like you imagine even at half-time today, Frank would have been saying all sorts to Everton about United, saying that they don't fancy it. They're a team of individuals, etc. Just to fire your own group of lads up. It's just then it kind of gets leaked out and comes out. But certainly in a relegation battle, you have to be pulling your own weight, and it's going to be difficult. There's going to be times when you're making mistakes. but you've got to roll your sleeves up. I've said that several times there.
I saw Joe Malloy texting or tweeting that he's, he made the decision to watch Manchester United on a Saturday. That's a decision I won't be making again, something to that effect. Like, Man United fans texting in, is this like the most depressed you've basically ever been following the club? Like, it was just so poor, JD. They've more or less blown their Champions League credentials now, it looks like anyway, barring a miracle. As David says, a sort of a team of individuals. In fairness, in the first half they should have been ahead, but I don't know, it's really, really grim.
Patrick's been in touch in 53106. Ronaldo's like a black hole that sucks the energy from all around him just so he can shine brighter.
He was poor.
But they all were.
Yeah.
They all were. And that's the thing is United, probably the best thing for them is not to get European football, and it's the hit reset. I tweeted about it there. I think that you look at Manchester United and the great history the club have, and they've got an interim manager. They're kind of waiting until the summer, and then he's going upstairs. It's just the whole thing is just a mess. And this United now need no European football. They need to clear out. I said about 8 players, but there could be 12 to 13.
What 8 would you get rid of, David?
What players?
Yeah, if you're talking 8 off the top of your head.
I'd keep De Gea. I'd keep Maguire. People would say, okay, I'd say that because I played with him and he's a pal of mine, but I think he's struggling massively with confidence. I think everything is just going wrong for him at the moment, but I do think he'll come out the other side. I'd move Lindelof on, I'd move Wan-Bissaka on, I'd move Telles, I'd move Pogba, I'd move Matic. What's that, 5? I'd move Cristiano.
Yeah.
I'd move Cristiano. I still think I'd stick with Rashford. I wouldn't get rid of him. I think Jesse Lingard needs to go. Juan Mata.
What about the midfielders?
David.
Pogba.
What about the two?
Can I throw it?
Go on, Shane. Now.
Can I throw it at you, David? Like, I don't know if you zoned in on it, but given that you would have played in a similar position, I thought Nemanja Matic was a disgrace for the goal today. He gave the ball away. I have no problem with that. That happens. The effort that he made, like, if you're a professional footballer and you give the ball away, you spend the next 30 seconds crossing your fingers that the ball doesn't end up in the back of the net and busting your arse to get back into position to try and ensure that the ball doesn't end up in the back of the net. He gave the ball away, and his attempt to get back into his position. He was in first gear the whole way, jogged back, and they're on the attack, and I'm looking at him going, how are you not bursting to get back here? And by the time he eventually does get back, it's too late, and he gets a little toe poke in, and that deflects it out to the goal scorer. If he'd made a proper effort to get back, I couldn't believe how lazy he was in trying to redeem himself after giving the ball away. It was awful.
Yeah, no, it was. And it's also a case of as well, Shane, that I often look at a group of players, and if they're all pulling in the same direction, if someone makes a mistake, you can't let it lead to 2 or 3 mistakes, and then it ends up in an opportunity for your opposition where they might score or whatever. But if a team is all pulling together and I see my pal making a mistake, I'm going to dig him out and I'm going to graft so then he can get in. I understand that what you're saying, because Matic at that moment should, break a gut to get back into position and try and win the ball back. But at the same time, you're looking kind of, can one of my teammates dig me out here? I've made a mistake, I'm out of position. And at the moment, that's United's biggest problem. It's just a group of individuals just doing their own thing, and there's just no flow. There's no effort in them. They just need a massive reset.
Let's hear now from Frank Lampard, who was speaking to BT after Everton's 1-0 win over Man United.
Pressure times. Where we are, reality of the situation. As good as we've been good. I think that's our 5th win in 7, and good clean sheets. We're getting clean sheets at home. So away from home is a different aspect, but at the same time, when we come together, like I said before the game, with fans and players alike, then we're hard to beat here. And it always starts with our physical output and our contact and our fighting spirit, because that's what fans demand here. Rightly so. When you give them that, you give yourself a chance, and we did that from minute 1 till minute 95, and then you make your own luck, or whatever you want to call it, when it's not luck. Jordan makes a great save, but things like that have been going against us. We get a deflection goal. I scored a load of those in my career, but we haven't been getting them here recently. So you fight for that.
And the will and desire from the crowd feeds to the players feed it back. There's a little circle going there.
Yeah, but it does start with us, and the crowd were great straight away, but, they could easily switch off a bit or get tetchy if they see people not working. And you know what, when you're not playing at your best, the reality of football is, we've all been there as people involved in the game, that you have to fight through it. And, you might give a ball away, it might look like you're not at it for a second. The only way to get it back round is to fly in and make a tackle, like in the build-up to the goal. Well, as soon as the goal goes in, my thought goes straight to a Dominic tackle in midfield, or Delph or Alan, whoever it was. Those sort of moments for me in the position we're in. Beautiful football can come later on. I've got ambitions at this club to stay up, move on, play well, change some things. But in the position we're in, fighting comes first and foremost.
Absolutely, we saw that. And Anthony Gordon, he's one of the happy stories of the season for Everton, isn't he?
Yeah, because he's a top young player with a great attitude, a great hunger. He loves the club. He loves coming to training every day. He loves the idea of scoring goals and making assists, and he's on himself that if he doesn't do that, he wants more, which is brilliant to see in a young player. It's a difference. The great batch of young players that we have in this country, of Mason Mount, 'cause I work with him. You look at Foden from outside, they have this extra attitude that makes them what they are, and he's one of those.
And you had experience alongside, and Fabian Delph's influence was obvious today.
Yeah, and we've missed him. It's something that goes unnoticed, and every club and every manager will bemoan it. We've got injuries, we've got problems and these things, but with the attributes and balance of our squad, if we have one or two defensive midfield players out for whatever reason, it's tough for us because we don't have them there, and you can take for granted when you have that. So Delphi gave us a sense of calm, his positional behaviours in terms of a centre back gets dragged out, he's dropped straight into the back four, things that he does naturally, and he was great today. And he can get his well-deserved rest. I saw his interview there. He can get his rest for a few days.
Richarlison, keepy-uppies as well. You don't often see that in the relegation scrap.
No, I was ready to go all old school on him and tell him off for that, but I'm not going to, because he runs as he does here. The fans love him because he gives everything, and he runs 5 little keepy-uppy headers. Not for me if he gives it away after that, but he had a good day.
Everyone rolled their sleeves up now. So Leicester, Liverpool, Chelsea, still plenty to do.
There's loads to do. It's one win, and we should have got a result in the week. And we sit there and say, oh, if only, because we should have got a result in performance levels, and we didn't. And that's the reality when things go against you. You have to keep going. It's not easy when you wake up the next morning after Burnley. And my job first and foremost is to lift everyone, be positive with everyone, try and go again. But they were a good lad. They were a good bunch in that dressing room. Seeing them, feeling the way they talk after, and what they want. Some people question that about these players here. Come and watch us play today, and bodies on the line. Damari Gray making blocks in front of Jordan at the end. They were a good bunch, but yeah, it's one win. Got a lot to do.
Yeah, 53106 your text. Everton are still going down. JD United are dreadful. I really wouldn't read anything into the result. Burnley will beat Norwich tomorrow and go 1 point behind again. Plus they've got the easier run in. Fingers crossed Everton go down, and that'll be the end of that club, says Pat, who might be a Liverpool fan given the state of that text. Here on 53106. David Meyler, for Frank Lampard, he's got to keep them up, and then he has to see where he goes in his managerial career, because he doesn't want it over before it starts.
No, 100%, JD. It was interesting listening to Damien Delaney. He was on the last few days, and I agree with Damien. I think Frank probably underestimated the job a bit. He probably came in with his ideas of being able to play fluent football and be able to change the kind of philosophy there and the culture, but they were in a massive relegation battle, and he's probably only seeing it now, in the last probably 2 games, that we just need to stay up, get to the summer, and then he can look to bring in some new players, freshen up a little bit, move on some older players, and then try and change and push forward for next season.
Let's hear now from Ralf Rangnick, who spoke to BT after the defeat to Everton.
Second half, we were trying to add more creativity and more verticality with our substitutions, but didn't always find and choose the right moment, or didn't take the right decision, and in the end, couldn't score a single goal in 95 minutes, as I said. Yeah,
and their goal, of course, changed the dynamic inside the stadium as well. They got a real groundswell from the Goodison Park crowd.
Yeah, but that was clear that happened. Therefore, it would have been important to score the first goal ourselves, and this should have happened in the first half hour. And if not, it doesn't make life any easier for us.
He was searching for a way through. Is that why Juan Mata came on? That's his first Premier League appearance this season.
Yes, as I said, we had to do something because we needed a goal, and I decided to bring with him more creativity in midfield and more verticality with Anthony Elanga, but obviously they were defending with all their field players in the last 35, 40 minutes, and we didn't find we didn't find the right player at the right moment, and had not always enough players in the box when we played our crosses into the box.
And just around the club at the moment, everyone's waiting for big decisions to come. Is there any sense that you feel that you're in limbo at the moment? There's the distractions going on?
No, I don't think that this should be an excuse to nobody. I mean, we're Manchester United, all the players. We have a lot of international players. This cannot be an alibi or an excuse to nobody. We shouldn't be distracted by that. I mean, there will be a new manager next season. And if this is being announced now or in 10 or in 14 or in 20 days, should have no effect to a game like this one today.
You talked about get vital 3 points today and for the rest of the season. Is the top four gone now?
We've spoken about that quite a few times. I mean, we are dependent on the other results, but as long as we don't win our own games, we will never have good results from the other teams. So the only thing that we can do is stick together. Now we have Fred injured on top of Scott McTominay. That means both defensive sixes might be injured, hopefully not for too long. And that's all we can do, and then prepare for the Norwich game.
Thank you very much, Ralf.
Thank you.
Ralf Rangnick speaking to BT there after United lost 1-0 to Everton today. Chelsea already 3-0 up away to Southampton with Marcus Alonso, Mason Mount and Timo Werner on the mark. And a huge goal for Leeds, 1-0 up away to Watford through Rafinha. Arsenal 0, Brighton 0 as the latest score. If you're a professional footballer, David, is it the case with this guy Rangnick, as nice as he might be, as whatever cultured as he might be in his past, that they're just looking beyond him here and maybe they're thinking about the summer holidays?
I find it very interesting listening to him there. What he's saying in terms of, whether the new manager's appointed in the next week or 2 weeks or whatever. All those players are playing for the Manchester United careers. Do you want to stay at an iconic club? You might feel, but how many of those players could go and potentially play for any other club, one of the top clubs in Europe? And you look around, like Cristiano's the only one you could probably say almost, maybe Pogba to a certain extent, but like Cristiano now is 37, 38. He's not got long left in him. So like, it's not a case if you can be looking towards your summer holidays. Maybe they are, JD. I only know a handful of them as lads, but certainly in my own experience, I'd be thinking like, I want to stay at this great club. I need to do more. I need to be working harder. I need to be performing better. That's the kind of the position that they'll find themselves in.
You mentioned Harry Maguire, David. Like, how much of a concern is it that he will struggle to actually ever get over the situation he's in now? I mean, today was just very unlucky, but for his mentality and like you can just imagine. I'm sure he's trying to block out social media. You can imagine he's going through first world hell at the moment.
Yeah, I actually, do you know what, Johnny? I spoke to him last week. I just fired him a few texts, like to say, like, keep going. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to break into, down into detail what we went through, but it is very difficult on him because, like, you see social media say today that he's trying to block Anthony Gordon's shot and the ball comes off him and it goes into the back of the net. He's at a point in his career where no matter what he tries to do, everything is going wrong. Obviously, then when he played with England, he had a very good performance, which you're kind of looking at. Why can't you put those in for United? But I think he's in a team at United where everybody is struggling. Everybody is looking at themselves, kind of like, I could be doing more. Things aren't great for me, and it's kind of like dog eat dog, where everyone's kind of concentrating themselves, as opposed to kind of pulling together. Like I presume you've seen the stuff with Alphonso Davies come out there recently on social media. It's just coming from all angles at him, and it will be tough on him mentally. But that's what I kind of said when I listed off the players of who I would like to see, who I'd like to see, or who I think United should push on. I do think there's enough character in Harry that he can turn it round. But the longer it goes on, it's going to become more and more difficult for him.
Do you need a manager then? I wonder, to sort of put your.
You need a culture reset, don't you, at Old Trafford, David? Like, Pogba and Ronaldo can't be there for Erik Ten Hag. Like, if Erik Ten Hag wants to start off and have a blueprint for the next 5 years, he has to be able to pick who he wants. He can't have every single week people being unhappy in the back pages of the newspapers. And to me, it sounds like there's a toxic culture to a degree at Manchester United. That's what I would have observed over the last few months. Maybe I'm wrong, but the decisions at the top haven't been good for many years now, 9 years since they won the league, and they just need to completely clean house.
Yeah, I don't know, 100% they do. I think there's far too many egos, and I think the signing of Ronaldo has kind of, don't get me wrong, it's very difficult to criticise someone who is so good for so long.
But you can if he doesn't fit.
Yeah, but he doesn't fit, and that's evident in their performances this year. He scored like good goals for them in important games that get them over the line. There's no doubting Cristiano will do that, but it seems almost the team have shrunk with him, that they don't know how to play with him. They probably don't know how to deal with him, how to talk to him, because he's such an iconic figure of the game. And I think a lot of them can't deal with the pressure of playing with Cristiano Ronaldo. And you look at Bruno. Bruno was obviously, when he signed in that January, like the next 18 months of Bruno were unbelievable. But then we all looked at, you look at Bruno playing with Portugal. It just never worked with him and Cristiano. And you can see that. I don't know what their relationship is like. I don't know how well they get on or whatever off the pitch. But you can see that Bruno was the main man for such a long time at United. And then Cristiano comes and it's like, the Premier League, you knew they went over the top with everything. Obviously, even them changing the rules for Cristiano to get number 7, because obviously the shirt numbers have been done. They've been submitted. I think Cavani obviously said Cristiano can have 7. I'll wear my international number. All those small details that we've got someone who's just so iconic that I don't think the players can step up to his level or get anywhere near him. And I feel that they can't deal with that pressure.
Lots of text in here on 53106 from United fans. United could be this bad and still qualify for the Champions League under new rules. All the uproar about the Super League, and we're getting one now. The only difference is it's owned by UEFA, says Rory. Lads, it was not a single player in Man United's first title-winning side under Ferguson that he started his first game with. Admittedly, Robson was injured that first match. The same applies now. Your next United Premier League winning side, which will be within 5 to 6 years, club is too big not to win one in that time frame, will not have a single player that played today. How can United hope to improve until their transfer policy changes? Who's buying these players with no obvious strategy about how to play, says Pat. Man United need to clear out the boardroom, including Rangnick and Alex Ferguson. They do their job and then they go. And also an Everton text here from Patrick. They cannot go into next season with this manager and players, Frank Lampard. It'll be the same story otherwise. Erik, Ten Hag, Shane Keegan. I know he's done well at Ajax, but this is the big leagues. This is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and all the circus that accompanies it, and all the Man United players from the golden era that have a football industry around them. Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Paul Scholes, just to name 3.
Yeah, I look, he's got a massive job in his hands, Jeddy. I would disagree. I think your middle, the 3 texts you had out there, the middle texter might have been who said they're too big of a club not to win a league title in the next 5 years. I would disagree with that completely. I would be amazed if Manchester United won a Premier League title in the next 5 years, to be honest with you. They're a million miles behind where City or Liverpool are at the moment. And I think it's a really, really long-term job certainly in terms of trying to reach that level, trying to reach the very, very summit. I mean, they have a lot of work to do just to get their own house in order, right? I think it could take 2 to 3 seasons just for them to get a proper competitive team in all areas of the field back on the pitch. And then throw on top of that the fact that you're trying to reel in 2 teams that are the 2 best teams in world club football at the moment. Like, they are. There's absolutely no doubt they are, with the 2 best managers probably in world club football at the moment. So I can't see how they make up that gap in those 4 or 5 years. Look, I think they're going to have to give the new manager a hell of a lot of time. He comes in with a good pedigree, but as you say, a good pedigree at a very, very, very different level. But I think they really, really are going to have to almost say, regardless of results, for the next 18 to 24 months, they were putting complete and utter faith in this man. We're going to back him in the transfer market. We're going to go with everything he goes, because if it's just chop and change, they're going to get absolutely no closer than they are at the moment to the big 2. And as I say, that is a million miles off.
Is it that bleak, David Meyler?
It is. But Manchester United are so used to winning. Okay, right, you can go on, it's 9 years since they won the Premier League title, but they're so used to, there's that history, and that club is so iconic that I agree with Shane that if they bring in a new manager, they have to give him time, and he needs to be able to implement his style. But Manchester United fans might say that, no, okay, we understand that. But once the next season kicks off, United are United, and they want to be challenging. They want to be pushing Liverpool. They want to be pushing Manchester City. They want to be competing on all fronts. It's such a tricky thing to, find the balance of. But it is, like, the scary thing is, like, it took, Liverpool 30 years to win the Premier League. United are about to reach, 10. It could be another 10 or 15 years before United are back up there, unless they sort this situation out in the next, 6 to 12 months.
There you go, David Meyler, 53106 United fans, if you want to react to that. Brighton have scored. They've scored away to Arsenal through Leandro Trossard. So that is a crucial goal in the race for the top four. And Chelsea have scored a fourth goal away to Southampton through Kai Havertz. So they're really bouncing back after that defeat to Brentford. Watford 0, Leeds 1 in the Premier League with Rafinha on the mark. Villa versus Spurs is a 5:30 start in the Championship. Sheffield United 0, Bournemouth 0 is a result. Blackburn 1, Blackpool 0 is the latest score. It is Bristol City 0, Peterborough 0, Middlesbrough 0, Hull 0. It is Millwall 1, Barnsley 0. It's Nottingham Forest 1, Birmingham City 0. Preston and QPR is goalless. Reading lead Cardiff by a goal to 0. It's Swansea 2, Derby 1 and West Brom 0, Stoke 1. And in the Champions Cup, Toulouse 7, Ulster 7 in the first half. Off the Ball Saturday News Talk is back after this. And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 8 o'clock this evening. An extended show because we're going to have live commentary later of Munster's match away to Exeter in the Champions Cup. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. It's Football Saturday at the moment with David Meyler, the former Republic of Ireland international, Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist, and the UEFA Pro Licence coach Shane Keegan. You can watch us on the digital and social channels as well as listening to us on the radio on News Talk. Man United losing 1-0 to Everton in the Premier League earlier on today. 53106, Ronaldo will be gone next year. Surely he's got a get-out clause of no Champions League football. Say what you want, but nobody's got more match-winning goals in the league or knockout Champions League football than the number 7, says Brian. Hi, John. United's biggest issue is the lack of trust in the academy. A net spend of $1 billion, wages out of control. There's just no hunger. Look at the bench, there's no academy players. The club's history is based on trusting the youth sides. The club is rotten. Don't get me started on Darren Fletcher sitting on the bench. What's his role? We'll win nothing in the next 5 years. That's from Bobby in Limerick. Surely anyone that's got Pogba and Ronaldo as the top paid players at the club and thought Conte was a bad idea must surely fail the fit and proper person test in the Premier League rules, says Aaron, a bit of a tongue-in-cheek text there on 53106. Is Erik Ten Hag big enough for Man United, David Meyler?
Yes, at the moment, yes, he is. It's such a difficult job to go into because everything's all over the place. Obviously, he's had great success at Ajax, but the philosophies of the clubs, the standards of the leagues, the expectations are so different. The pressure, Manchester United is hard. You've seen so many managers after Sir Alex struggle with that. Is he the right appointment? Only time will tell. It's just a case of who else is out there. The people mention Pochettino. I imagine a lot of the hierarchy in the United are probably kicking themselves. They didn't go after Antonio Conte because you look at the transformation of Tottenham. So to answer your question, JD, no, I don't think he's too big at the moment.
It's funny that Matt Doherty, for example, is really flourishing, isn't he, under Conte? He's like being turned inside out. I thought he was going to leave the club at one stage there.
It did look like that, and that's probably us looking at it, with our Ireland glasses on, thinking if we want to be flying or we need him flying for Stephen, in argument's sake, that you need him playing regular football. But to be fair to Matt, he's stuck at it, and obviously Conte's come in and look, if anyone had seen any of Inter Milan's play, he obviously played with the wing back, so it was crucial that if Matt stuck at it, applied himself well. We know he's fantastic going forward in that wing back position. We've seen that at Wolves multiple times. So fair play to him. I'm delighted for him because he is pivotal to what Spurs are doing at the moment.
I remember Football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky, the big one, Man City versus Liverpool on Super Sunday live on Sky Sports. I can't believe Arsenal are doing this again. If you're an Arsenal fan, Arsenal 0, Brighton 1 coming up to half time in the Premier League after the Palace defeat. Southampton 0, Chelsea 4, and then Watford 0, Leeds 1. We'll talk about Arsenal a bit later on, but David, I suppose this is the biggest game in world football tomorrow. Like, you can't get bigger than this. Man City, Liverpool. I was going through The Athletic this morning and I'm reading so much copy on this. How Man City and Liverpool have dominated the Premier League from August 2018 to April 2022. Total points: Man City 338, Liverpool 337. And there's a point between them tomorrow.
It's unbelievable. And obviously there's been a lot after Jamie Carragher's tweet about this is the biggest Premier League rivalry of all time. There's been a lot of talk about it, but what a game. Even they're playing obviously following week in the FA Cup, but there's so much made of it, of whoever wins will go on to win the Premier League title. It's the biggest game of football at the moment, obviously, because El Clasico is down in the drain. It's what, JD, I can't wait. I'm nervous, I'm excited, because obviously it's a huge game and I expect it to be an unbelievable spectacle. Two incredible teams, incredible managers. It just has everything.
You going?
No, I've decided to stay at home because I've been away with the wife. So I'll save my keep it for another game at a future date.
Fair play. Will the winner of the match win the title, David?
Yes, I believe so. Of course, look, it's only 3 points or whatever, but I think it's the momentum. Both teams are coming in great form. Obviously, both had good wins in the Champions League. I just think psychologically it will be massive. I think if one team gets the upper hand on the other, obviously if Liverpool win, they'll go 2 points clear, which will be huge for them. And then obviously Man City are chasing them down. Of course, if City win, it's 4 points. That's 2 games in the remaining one. So I do feel whoever wins it will go on and win the Premier League title.
I was kind of thinking, Johnny and Shane, like, who's the better manager, Pep or Klopp? And I can't really work that one out in my head, to be honest.
They're totally different, Shane, aren't they? Like, I don't know, it's probably like comparing you and I don't know, someone not like you anyway. But
I don't want to hear the second half.
Maybe Adrian, probably might be Adrian and Leash.
I think Shane's more Klopp than Guardiola, but they're totally different, Shane. Maybe Adrian and Leash, yeah.
And look, I suppose the fact that they're so different in personality, in the way they go about things, that's what makes it. I know, like David was saying, just the excitement as a neutral of being able to sit down and watch this game tomorrow, JD. For me, it's, you're looking at so many different aspects of the game, even in terms of, like, you look at your starting 11 tomorrow. I would think that most of us could have a fair stab at the Liverpool one. We probably get somewhere between 9 and 10 of it fairly nailed on. Whereas, should we just have a notion what way Guardiola is going to go about it tomorrow? Because the chopping and changing, I was reading something, again, there's so much good stuff at the moment building up to it. I was reading something saying that if you take Phil Foden, for example, in Man City's last 4 games against Liverpool, Phil Foden has started 1 on the left, 1 on the right, 1 through the centre, and been a sub for the other one. And even, again, if you look at the centre forwards, he started a different centre forward in each of his last 3 games against Liverpool. He's gone with Foden in one game, he's gone with Grealish in another, he's gone with Bernardo Silva in another. So you just do not know what you're going to get in terms of how he's going to go about it. Like, the last game obviously was an absolute cracker, and we can all just hope and pray that we get a game of that standard again. I think the big difference, there's one big pro and there's one big con for Liverpool when you look at the last performance. City absolutely went to town on poor James Milner the last day. Trent was out. James Milner started at right back, and I've seen targeting of players before, but it was just ridiculous how much they went after him, and they had huge success in that sense. But then in front of him, you had a Mo Salah, one of the best players in the world, in banging form, and he was obviously absolutely scintillating in that game. Now, if you look at those 2 positions coming into this one, Trent is back. So a massive improvement in terms of their situation at right back, whereas Salah's form obviously has taken a fairly significant dip. Like, if Salah's not on it tomorrow, lads, like, to me, Liverpool have no hope. Like, I don't see how Liverpool win this game without an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 performance for Mo Salah. That's where there is a little bit more of an over-reliance on one player there than probably there is on any particular one player at City. But, like, the battle, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah, down Liverpool's right-hand side against João Cancelo and possibly Phil Foden down Liverpool or City's left-hand side. Like, that's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets for me.
Is it that pronounced a dip for Mo Salah, David Meyler?
I know. I think Shane. Look, he's in a tough run of form. He's not been at the heights that he's been at for so long. But even I think if Salah isn't performing at the level that we know he can, I think there's enough. There's just plenty to go around with Mane. I expect Jota will start tomorrow. Certainly with Luis Diaz playing 90 the other night. I definitely think those have enough. To carry the flame forward. I think Liverpool will be all right.
Patrick has been in touch on 53106. What's the Liverpool starting front three tomorrow? A huge call for Klopp, David.
I'll give it to you. Salah will play off the right, Mane will play through the middle, and Jota will play off the left. Obviously, he took Mane and Salah off after an hour the other night, and obviously Luis Diaz played the entire game. I don't think Firmino unfortunately has gone to the back of the pack. So I imagine within probably 25-30 to go, Luis Diaz will come on for whichever one of them is flagging. If Shane is right, Salah doesn't perform at the level, he'll take him off and he'll bring on Luis Diaz. But look, that's the beauty of Liverpool now, and you look at the players that Klopp has, the recruitment of those two especially, in Diaz and Jota, they've been incredible. So there's good front three depth there, and they can chop and change.
You spoke about the pros and cons for Liverpool. What is the pro and con for City then, Shane? Is it the fluidity? Is it the possession? And is Ruben Dias not being there a con?
Yeah, well, that's definitely a con, John. Yeah, you've definitely hit the nail on the head there, and Liverpool will take a lot of heart from that one. You could argue that the pro and con for City both revolves around the one position, obviously, and that's that centre-forward role. The fluidity and the fact that they play with the false nine and how deep he comes, it means they monopolise the ball and it allows them to create fantastic overloads all over the field. But then there are times, no doubt, where they're in and around the box and they're looking to get that goal, and you're just thinking, if they just had an out-and-out nine, if they just had somebody who was a pure, sniffer of goals in the way that Aguero was for them for so long. Obviously, Aguero had more than that to his game, but that was his I suppose his main plus was his ability just to hit the back of the net when you required it most. So look, it gives him a complete stranglehold on the game, but on the flip side, does it take away a little bit of a cutting edge for them? Obviously, they're well-courted Harry Kane at the moment. I think we could probably all forget about it if they went and they got a player like that. So as much of a hold it gives them on a game, at times they have enough players to give them a hold on the game anyway, JD, I suppose is the point I would say. The other five around that, and then the full-backs coming forward, I think they could sacrifice one ball player for a guy who just hangs around the 18-yard box and puts it in the back of the net for me.
Do you think there's any suggestion City will kind of, if the game is like, it could be fairly cagey, if the game is sort of approaching 75 minutes, do they kind of just sit off and just like a draw is fine for them?
Yeah, Liverpool are the ones who are going to have to force the issue, obviously. Now, when I say force the issue, like, they will accept, because you kind of have to accept when you play against Manchester City, that they will have the majority of the ball. But whereas City will be very, very patient with it and try and monopolise it, Liverpool will go for the kill, I think, very, very quickly every time they have the ball. One, because it's their best style of play, and two, because they have to force the issue, because the draw really isn't obviously as valuable to them. And yeah, it could be a little bit cat and mouse in the first half. Liverpool may be sitting off and saying, look, we're happy enough with 0-0 at half time. City could say we're happy enough with 0-0 at half time, but I'd caveat that by saying the individual quality of the players on the field means any one of them could do anything absolutely incredible to get us a goal within that first half.
Yeah, okay. Got to take a break. More on Liverpool and Man City in the Premier League, the showdown, which is live here on News Talk tomorrow. David Meyler, Johnny Warden, Shane Keegan after 4, between 4 and 5. We're on air till 8 because we got commentary later of Munster against Exeter in the Champions Cup. At the moment, it's Toulouse 10, Ulster 7 in the first half. So Ulster doing well in France in that first leg of the last 16 tie in the Premier League. Everton 1, Man United 0 a result. Half time's huge game this. Arsenal 0, Brighton 1. at the break at the Emirates. Southampton 0, Chelsea 4, and Leeds are 1-0 up away to Watford. Aston Villa and Spurs kick off at 5:30 in the Championship. Latest scores, half times: Blackburn 1, Blackpool 0, Bristol City 1, Peterborough 0, it's Middlesbrough 0, Hull 0, Millwall 1, Barnsley 0, it is Nottingham Forest 1, Birmingham City 0, Preston 1, QPR 0, Reading 1, Cardiff 0 at half time. It is Swansea 2, Derby County 1, and West Brom 0, Stoke 1. Earlier, Sheffield United 0, Bournemouth 0. Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk is back after the news with more from David, Johnny and Shane on Football Saturday. And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 8 because we have commentary of Munster's game away to Exeter in the Champions Cup at 5:30 on this extended show. It is Toulouse 13, Ulster 7 at the moment at half-time in France. So good performance in the first half from Ulster, looking to bring back some type of score to Ravenhill next week. But this is Football Saturday right now. David Meyler, the former Republic of Ireland international, Shane Keegan, the UEFA Pro Licence coach, and Johnny Ward with us as always on a Saturday. 53106 for your text. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. What's the story tomorrow? We got the game live on News Talk, exclusive commentary. Biggest game in the world for me, Man City against Liverpool. Well, how's it going to go? What's your opinions? What's your questions to the lads? We're listening on News Talk. You can listen on the radio here. You can watch us as well on the social channels and digital channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app. In the Premier League, Arsenal losing 1-0 at home to Brighton. Southampton 0, Chelsea 4, Watford 0, Leeds 1. And David Meyler, tactically, how do you see this playing out tomorrow at 4:30? City against Liverpool. What are you looking to see? What are you predicting?
Well, we can kind of guess the Liverpool team. I think it'll be Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago in midfield. I already said the front three. Obviously, the back four kind of picks itself, and the keeper. City would be very interesting to see what way they go. I'm thinking Rodri will play as a 6. I think he'll go Bernardo and Kevin De Bruyne, and then I think he'll play Sterling, Mahrez and Foden. Foden will play as a false 9, because I think the way Liverpool play with their high line, he's probably looking for Foden to kind of drop deep, to be playing balls in behind for someone like a Sterling with the pace he has. Mahrez is obviously so skillful and he's quick as well.
Can I ask you on that, David? Are they brave enough to go with a proper high line in a game like that?
Yeah. Johnny, I would love as a Liverpool supporter to see him, when they go into these types of games, to drop off 5 yards, to give that little bit more respect. But they just have their philosophy, they have their way of playing, and Jurgen doesn't seem to want to change for anyone. I'd be very, very surprised if they did that. I think, now, don't get me wrong, Shane kind of said he feels that both teams will be a bit cautious early on. I think we'll see fireworks early on, and I think as it goes later into the game, if it is 0-0 and either team doesn't break the deadlock, I think both teams will settle for the draw. I don't think Liverpool will push very hard the last 10-15 minutes to try and get a winner. So that kind of one will, if we can't win it, we don't lose it mentality. I think they'll be happy to just say, look, we're away from home here. The last thing we need to do is give up a couple of chances here. I don't think they'll throw the kitchen sink on it with 15 to go. It has everything. Do you know, it's two fascinating styles. Even as we sit here, like Shane's right in what he's saying, is we can't guess Manchester City starting 11. You just don't know. He could play Grealish, he might not. It's certainly going to be an interesting one from lead up once the teams are announced.
Is that Shane what makes or what helps to make like a world class coach? And that, as David is saying, you're trying to second guess here. So you do all your, as you know from your own career, you do all your opposition analysis. You do your shape. This is how we expect to set up against the opponents. But there must be a bit of double bluff going on as well, where like one of these managers wants to throw a rabbit and just do something different. Like, so does the really good coach kind of adapt to that when he sees it straight away on the pitch and say, okay, well we can embrace that and we can kind of offset that and counter it?
Yeah, never mind the poor coaches. God help the bloody opposition analysts, Johnny. I used to be happy if the predicted 11 I'd handed to the manager, if I'd got 9 of 11 right, I'd be fairly happy. I'd be aiming for 10 out of the 11, I suppose. But with City, look, on the troublesome side, yeah, it's almost impossible to predict what the personnel will be. You do well as an opposition manager to get your 9 or opposition analyst to get your 9 or 10 right there. But I suppose the big thing is the playing style will remain pretty similar regardless of who the personnel are. We've all seen what they're doing now. They say you can't reinvent the wheel. To be fair to Pep, he's still finding ways of being extremely innovative. Wingers had pretty much died out of the game. Everybody was playing with inverted wingers, and all of a sudden Pep appears with two wingers or two wide players who are told put your heels on the sideline when the ball is in central areas, and free that space up for the fullbacks to run into. So their fullbacks are now essentially playing in the style that we became accustomed to the inverted wingers playing in, which is just mad to watch, absolutely mad to watch. And I mean, you will see probably a shape when they have the ball of the two centre halves and Rodri as a base of three, and then just have a guess then where all the other bodies are going to appear, because the fluidity is just absolutely crazy. But because they'll know the playing style, Liverpool will have worked their socks off all week. Look, as I say, it's a guessing game as to who the 9 is going to be. I think he might go Bernardo Silva that high up the field, possibly. I'm not sure. But like they'll have been able to work on the training ground. There's no doubt about that. Johnny, Liverpool or Liverpool will have done a massive amount of work, and the biggest thing they'll have worked on is those transitions. There's no doubt about it. How they're gonna go about exploiting it, the spaces in behind the full-backs, getting the players out wide. Particularly, I think they'll look to get at John Stones' side of the field. Will we see Kyle Walker maybe play slightly more reserved, maybe on that side, to give John Stones a little bit more protection? Quite possible. But look, there's just so many fascinating tactical battles in there. It's just mouth-watering, you know.
The Salah one, JD's been... I think if Salah doesn't have a great game, it's kind of hard enough to see Liverpool winning, because he's so important to them. I mean, he's been utterly sensational this season. I was so sorry for him with that penalty and all the madness from the crowd and all that, playing for Egypt. I haven't watched them that much of late to say. I saw John Aldridge's article where he said he's definitely dropped in form. Like, the games I've seen, he's been fine.
He still scored 20 goals this season. Yeah. Far more than everybody else. They won 10 games in a row. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, David, though. If Salah doesn't play well, it's kind of hard enough to see Liverpool winning.
But it's also Johnny, when we put Salah as playing well, we initially go for, is he scoring, is he assisting, right? But he can still have an impact on the game where he can pin Cancelo back, and he can do enough that if he's not scoring, that he creates enough problems for them. Of course, as a Liverpool supporter, you want to see Salah grabbing the headlines. He's the one who's going to score the goals, etc. But he can still have such an impact on the game without hitting the heights that he's hit. Like, that's why I say there's enough quality with Mane, Jota, Diaz and Firmino that if he isn't, scoring or assisting, that those others can, carry the weight. That's something Liverpool have not had for a long time, and that's why they've not been able to, win multiple trophies in 1 year. Of course, you want to see your main man firing at all cylinders, and I do agree with John Aldridge in a certain extent that there has been a dip in his form. Obviously, the loss against Senegal, we've seen the lasers, we've seen that going round. There's obviously all this talk about his contract. Even his interview, I was a bit like, why are you doing an interview leading into this game? Well, where he's asked the question, will you be staying? Maybe, maybe not. That kind of whole thing, you don't need that. But I definitely think there's enough quality in that team. It's always a great example. I look at it, you look at Manchester United and you look at, where the leaders in that team. Whereas if you look at Liverpool, you've got Alisson, who you wouldn't really doubt. Then you've got the Scottish captain left back. Do you know what I mean? You've got the Dutch captain. There's so many captains, the Egyptian captain, the Senegalese captain. There's so many leaders in that team that I feel if Salah is not firing on all cylinders, he'll still be able to put in a big enough performance that the others can then fire. So I think even if Salah doesn't perform at the heights, I still think that Liverpool have enough to, get the job done and get the victory.
Johnny, what I would say is I do think that battle will have the biggest influence on the game, because I suppose as a manager, when you come up against a player who is potentially not going to track back. And that's not to say it's our laziness. I just think, which way are Liverpool going to go about this? Are they going to say to Mo Salah, Mo, we need you coming back with João Cancelo when he goes? If that happens, there's a possibility that they neutralise each other a little bit and the game becomes a little bit more cagey. Or hopefully, Klopp says to Mo Salah, listen, Mo, we've enough bodies to put in a defensive shift. You stay high, let Cancelo come on to us. And if they go with that approach, well, now City are going to have lots of opportunities to create chances because Cancelo will have that bit more freedom. Liverpool will have far, far more chances because they're brilliantly set up to counter-attack every time they turn the ball over. So I think that one above all else has potentially got the most influence on the tactical battle in the game.
I think Liverpool need to win this. I'm looking at the run-ins, lads. Like Liverpool have Man United, Everton, Newcastle, Tottenham, Villa, Southampton and Wolves, and City have Wolves, Brighton, Watford, Leeds, Newcastle, West Ham and Villa. I think City, if they get a draw tomorrow, are capable of winning all those matches. And Liverpool are capable as well, but Liverpool might have a harder running.
But he's your JD. It's games. The two of them. Look at the two
it's
of
not
them.
Played in paper.
They're miles, exactly, and the two of them are miles clear of everyone. They're the two best teams in Europe.
In the world, possibly.
But we seem to always gravitate towards Europe, but they are the two best teams in the world. I would expect, to be such a cagey game, but I still expect both teams after this to probably go and win the rest of the Premier League games. Do you know what I mean? Liverpool will get up for United. Those kind of the Everton games. I wouldn't look at the run-ins because I still expect both teams. I think whichever one does come out. That's why I said earlier, I think they'll both win the rest of their games. But I just think psychologically, this could be the turning point.
Statistically now, for them to win all of their games is definitely unlikely. It's quite unlikely because there are a couple of games there. Obviously, the Tottenham game, City of maybe West Ham. There are a couple, but regardless of what happens, Liverpool's season has been sensational from the position they were in to have the title in their own hands at this stage, to be fighting on so many fronts.
The quadruple is on.
I don't know. I mean, whatever happens, even if they fell off a cliff at this stage, you'd have to laud them for the consistency. And it's not easy. It's not I think Klopp, he just really put so much stock in getting the right characters in that dressing room. And Man United could not be more different. David's reference there, I don't think he even mentioned Henderson, who's obviously the most obvious leader of them all, really. Just these really, really good, driven characters who epitomise what that team is about. And from the position they were in, they'll probably win at least one trophy anyway. They're in a good position in the Champions League. I think
they're in a better position than City.
They are, and
they meet the cup semi-final as well next week.
Yeah, but to be in the position, and they kind of have the momentum in the league to an extent from the position they were in. But it's a phenomenal achievement from them for Klopp to keep all that squad happy and to keep players like Firmino, who's kind of been, as David said, he's fallen down the line but still hungry for success. It's a phenomenal achievement regardless of what happens.
Chelsea now 6-0 up away to Southampton. Southampton throw in these results from time to time, but Timo Werner has scored twice, including a goal in the second half, and Mason Mount making it 6-0. So that's the response after the Real defeat and the Brentford defeat. Arsenal 0, Brighton 1 still in the second half. Leandro Trossard at the Emirates Stadium. Watford 0, Leeds 1. With Rafinha on the mark at Vicarage Road. Aston Villa and Tottenham kicks off at 5:30. A text in here on 53106. David Meyler, has Jack Grealish been a flop this season? He cost 100 million.
Can I tell you that at the end of the season, on his contribution towards, obviously they're battling for their own treble with the Premier League, Champions League. What will his impact be? Obviously, you'd expect him to have a better return in goals and assists, but it takes time to adjust. Obviously leaving Aston Villa, you're the main man. He had that thing, pressure. He said that quote recently, pressure is a privilege. It will take him time. I think you'll see, Manchester City fans will see a far better Jack Grealish next year because he'll understand his teammates a lot more, the demands that his manager puts on him. I wouldn't say it's been a flop, but I would have expected more in a team that dominate games so much, who create so many opportunities. His returns haven't been at the level I would have expected of him.
Possibly at a higher altitude, you see, you're working for Pep. It's kind of funny, lads, because I'm reading a lot of stuff. This game I just think is going to be absolutely incredible tomorrow. Can't wait for it. But this might be like, it's coming towards the end in a way for them, because like Klopp's been there since 2015, Pep's been there since 2016, Pep's meant to go in 2023, next year? Klopp's meant to go in 2024. This could be the high watermark for the Liverpool City rivalry, you know? And they've scored in the last 5 games in the Premier League, they've been 4 goals in at least 4 of the games. So I'm expecting goals tomorrow. I'm expecting the best of world football. I just can't wait for it.
That's the thing, like this. The lads are on about Man United and how far they're off. You know, if some things kind of align, you could easily see Liverpool and or Man City like just start to go backwards once those managers leave, because they've been so pivotal to what they've done, and it's very, very hard to maintain that. You know, you talk about Grealish. Like, I don't think some Man City players really enjoy playing under Pep. I think it's so intense. And there was a great line in The Guardian today where it's like, Klopp basically understands that football is not everything in life. Guardiola kind of understands that, well, it kind of is, you know, and that is like he's
the Shankly mode.
Yeah, he's totally, but like even more so. It's just he's so, and you see some players probably can't really cope with it. And I do wonder, is Grealish kind of, I don't know, is he in love with the Guardiola regime? He was at Villa where he was the big fish in the small pond. It's not like that now, but you could see like these teams, their futures are not set in stone. Salah's obviously, he may even leave. So like it's not, things can change quickly.
They're obsessed, aren't they, David Meyler, in different ways, Klopp and Guardiola?
No, 100%. You always kind of see with Pep, he always seems to have that kind of burnout after a couple of years because he is so intense. The demands he puts on his players of every day. He tries to joke it off about, do you remember when it was Grealish and a few City players had an incident where Jack was supposedly seen stumbling out of a bar, and he said he was annoyed because they didn't invite him. But he seems to be, it's just 100% football and anything else comes after, whereas Jurgen has kind of found the balance. And he's created this incredible atmosphere throughout, the city of Liverpool. There's just this, he has this aura, and everyone, associated with Liverpool loves and appreciates him. But there's that love and appreciation that works both ways. They're 2 unique, fascinating managers, 2 incredibly different styles in a way. And I think you're spot on that if both of them were to leave in a few years, Liverpool might not hit those heights again for a while. Likewise with City.
Anything anecdotal that you've heard from players who play for them, David? About, is it enjoyable to play for Pep? Is it playing for Klopp that they can't wait to get into the training ground every day? Anything that you hear?
Well, you hear various things. Of course, look, it's well documented. I have a few friends that play with Liverpool. I've spoken about it numerous times. But there's that warmth and love. There's different things that Jurgen has done where he invites, he puts on things for the wives of all the players to bring their children around his house where they throw something on for them. There's that he's created that family atmosphere, and it's not just the players and the demands he puts on them, but there's things where he involves the families. You hear of, Sir Alex knew every player. He knew their wives, he knew their children, he knew everything about every player. And there seems to be that bit. Obviously with Pep, I haven't heard as much in detail, but there has to be that buzz of playing for a big club. It's kind of those demands that are put on you. Like, I speak to Jordan regularly, and it's kind of like, it's like you're in a hotel, you're back, you're training, you're recovering. It's any downtime you want to spend with your wife and your children or whatever. And that's the pressures of playing for one of the big clubs. There's no kind of what I like to call outside noise. It's just you're in a privileged position where you commit everything to it. And they both managers are fascinating, and they get those demands out of the players. That's why we're seeing the standard of football we're seeing. And
like I think, Shane, that can't be contrived either, Shane. I mean, I was at the game in Talca last night. Stephen Kenny was in the stand, and Jim Crawford. Like, I mean, 2 of the good guys in football, I think. And Stephen Kenny, a lot of attention on him, stopping for fans. And part of me then is thinking, like, Damien Duff, what it must be like for the Shells players to want to, make Damien Duff happy, and the effort they put in for him. But like, I guess that won't wash after a while unless it's real. And I guess managers have to be, for that to work, you have to be an inherently good person.
Yeah, like you can put on, I suppose what you're hinting at there is you can put on a front for so long, can't you? But it can only ever be put on for so long, and the mask will eventually slip, and the real you will emerge. So, like, you don't have the longevity that those two managers have already had, and plenty more to come from them without, you're who you are as a person comes true. There's no doubt. You can't hide who you are as a person. And there is, look, JD, I did the paper review with you a couple of weeks ago when we were reading the McAteer piece, remember? And he passed a couple of interesting comments in relation to the kind of person Klopp was, that he could be in a hotel and he could randomly phone up like the sound guy from Liverpool TV, because he likes to have a pint with him. He's go crack, like, and he'll just come down to the bar and meet up with him and have a pint with him. And I suppose from the outside looking, that is kind of the thing we might have expected from him. He does strike you as that kind of fella who, I don't care who you are, if I think you're a bit of crack, I'll go and have a pint with you. Whereas it's very, very hard to see a situation where Pep would have put himself into it. Pep is probably upstairs playing chess against somebody, But you're judging people on these little tidbits that you get here and there, so you are. But there, look, as we keep saying, it's so interesting because they are such fascinatingly different characters. But also, do you know what I really, really like about it? I like the level of mutual respect that they have for each other. Like the whole Pep Jose thing, it was great for drama, but like that becomes a bit tiring, so it does, and it all becomes a little bit pantomime. The fact that these two guys, now look, they'll bark at each other on the sideline tomorrow if there's a 50-50 that they disagree with, but I do think they both have a genuine admiration for each other, as they should have. They both recognise the qualities that each other have. And I like that. I think that adds to the whole situation between the two clubs.
Well, they deserve a huge amount of credit because Jose's finished now. As an elite level manager, you'd have to think that Pep and Jurgen are still up there, right at the top. Yeah,
the stuff about Doherty as well, kind of.
And Conte's there as well, I would say.
Yeah, in terms of at the top. Yeah, I think that Jose didn't evolve. You have to evolve as a manager. The game is changing. I mean, what was the line again in the Guardian piece? Apologies, I don't know the writer, but it's like that Norwich would, batter the 1991.
Yeah, it's Jonathan Lew's piece.
That Norwich would batter the Man United team of the early 90s, the 1991. Yeah. And but
this is football engineering tomorrow. This is engineering. This engineering. Like whatever's gone on outside, and sometimes we talk about like whatever we believe about City or whatever, or the wealth of the game and the money. This on the pitch for the 90 minutes. This is the best football you'll ever see.
That's ever been played.
Yes, I went to see City Liverpool a couple of years ago when Mahrez missed the penalty at Anfield, and the quality of the first touches and the ball, like it's chocolate ice cream, lads.
If you're at the game, I think you have to be at the game to understand how fast it is.
To see like I'm closing my eyes here. I'm just like even dreaming. To see the movement of the slickness of the passing, like the lack of mistakes. Yeah, the lack of mistakes is the one thing.
Like as you mentioned, sorry, David.
Sorry. It's also the speed of it.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing. It's 100 mile an hour. No, it's the movement. It's almost effortless. Like people don't like watching a game on telly is one thing, but when you're in, like as you highlighted there, JD, when you're at the game, it's the speed in which they move. Like as Shane touched on there, the transitions and whatever, right? But if Liverpool are attacking, right, the ball breaks. Kevin De Bruyne has the ability to put a ball in a sixpence, like a 50, 60-yard ball where Sterling or one of those, whoever it may be, Foden, Grealish, Mahrez, Jesus, whoever it might be, he's the ability. And that's something that you kind of lose on watching football on the telly.
Did you have a game where you were playing, you were just like, the opposition just like literally blew you away and you were chasing shadows in terms of the quality of it?
Yeah. The first time it was evident was I was at Sunderland, and I'm going to say it was my third or fourth game in the Premier League, and we played Chelsea away. Now that had your John Terry's, Frank Lampard's, Ashley Cole's, Malouda, Drogba, Anelka. Like that was I would have said probably Mourinho was manager. We lost 7-2. We were 5-0 down at half time, and it was just like I remember myself and Jordan played in the middle of the park, and we went up against Lampard and Ballack. And it was just like, wow. Like, they must have been thinking, like, I'm just playing against kids here. Like, and you have all the effort and endeavour, and you're, like, I remember I was charging around trying to get close to people, but they just went pop round you and take you out of the game. And you're like, okay, I might have to sit in here for 5 or 10 minutes here and leave the game play in front of me. But it's like that's the beauty of watching Manchester City is it's the movement of the players. They overload one side where they bring 3 or 4 players, like Shane will know from his analysis or whatever, but the 9 they play will come short. And then the centre half is like, do I step out? Do I not? They create so many different problems that like one of the midfield players will drift over to the wing. The winger will come inside. The fullback pushes forward. They create little overloads of triangles and movements, and players are just lost. They just don't know how to deal with it because albeit the players are only taking up different positions, you should technically hold your shape, but it's very difficult when it's happening in the moment and players are moving. And that's something that, you know, Pep has been able to bring to the Premier League that we've never seen before. Like there'll be snippets of stuff you'll have seen throughout. He's not reinvented the wheel but it's definitely the speed of it and the intensity of it and the quality has just gone up level year on year.
David, it's interesting the first bit you said there about you know, bustling around and trying to get your tackles in, but it's just moving too fast. Like I know it's all different levels here, but I don't know if you heard the stat when our Dundalk side played Arsenal in the Europa League, and the stat came out after the game that was the first time in Europa League history that a team had gone an entire game without making a foul. And this seemed to be something that people were lauding, you know, fair play to Dundalk. They couldn't make it. They couldn't get close enough to kick them. That was the single reason why there was no foul. Like,
and that's the thing is, there's levels to it, and we've seen that, you know, time and time in. Like whether we watch, you know, the League of Ireland, we watch the Premier League, we watch international. The players and the quality just goes up. And it is so difficult because when a team, like I've played against the great Manchester City team where they just keep the ball. I scored at the Etihad years ago, and then Milner scored a free kick. And it was just like, wow, like, you know, we were pinned in. I think we had 17% possession or something. And like, it's just, there's nothing you can do. And it's so mentally tiring. Physically, like playing in those games, it was never a problem. I could get up and down the pitch all day long. That was one of my main attributes. But the whole thing of shifting side to side, not being out of position, all that, it's just, it's like this. When I say there's levels to it, it's like watching on telly is one thing, being in a stadium is another, but being on the pitch, it's unbelievable. Like the speed they move at, it's incredible.
We saw it again the other night, didn't we? Because like, you must be going to bed with a headache after a game like that, David, because the attention levels, just knowing that switch off for half a second here and you're going to be done. And that's what we saw the other night with City and Atletico. I mean, Atletico are arguably one of the best teams in the world at doing this, but it just, you know, it took a split second, as good and all as they were at doing it, a split second for Foden to find that little pocket of space and bang, you're undone. You must, seriously, playing against these clubs, you know, if you're in defensive mode, you'd be going to bed with the Anadons, you really would, because your head would be thumping.
You'd have about 12 points in you after. But that's what you call it. But even if you look at it, right? Like, even if you look at City's goal the other night, look at the position Phil Foden picks up. He's got 4 bodies around him where you think, me there, right, as a 6, you're kind of going, I don't mind you having the ball there because we've got numbers here. You're covered. But it's that ability to take his first touch is right, his second touch is right. He slips a perfectly weighted pass to De Bruyne and he just creams it that you're like, it's just like, you're spot on, Shane. It's like those little moments that, you know, the quality of player just goes up levels and it's phenomenal.
Remember that Off Football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. It's the big one, Man City versus Liverpool on Super Sunday, live on Sky Sports. The door has been opened by Arsenal for Tottenham against Aston Villa at 5:30 because it is Brighton 2, Arsenal 0 now at the Emirates Stadium, with Enoch Nwepu getting the second goal for the Seagulls. Chelsea 6, Southampton 0. And Leeds have scored again, subject to VAR. 2-0 up now, away to Watford in the Premier League. Just before we go to the break, lads, Shane Keegan, call it. Tomorrow, Man City, Liverpool, briefly.
I am going to go with City 2-1.
Johnny?
Draw. I think a draw is so logical here because I think Liverpool won't be that unhappy with it. City will be very happy with it. And as you say, for 3 years, it's been very little split them. Draw.
David Meyler, I know where the heart says, but what does the head say? Call it.
I'm torn between 3-2 Liverpool or 4-3 Liverpool.
You go for these mad scores. You like 4-3. Where are you getting this from? This does not happen anymore.
I hope you're right. I
think it's going to be boom bang everything. I think it's going to be two managers to just let them off the leash, and I think it's just going to go all over the place, like defensive mistakes of, like, say, a defender dribbling up with the ball, trying to control possession, losing it, boom, goal. I'm expecting all sorts. I'm excited. We have an unbelievable day of sport tomorrow.
We do indeed.
Well, and it's all live here on News Talk, where we got live commentary as well of the game with Stephen Doyle and Brian Kerr tomorrow. So we're on air till 8 tonight with the Munster Extra game. We're on air from 1 till 7 tomorrow. There's no other place to be than News Talk and Off the Ball this weekend. And we're back after this. John Duggan with you through until 8 this evening on this extended show, because we're bringing you live commentary of Munster's match away to Exeter in the Champions Cup. And Ulster are having a brilliant day. They're losing, but if you consider it's a two-legged tie in the last 16, it's Toulouse 13, Ulster 12, with Robert Balakoon scoring 2 tries for Ulster, and Toulouse are down as well to 14 players. Juan Cruz Malia sent off earlier in the game. So Ulster, there were 23 minutes to go, have a right chance of winning this game with an extra player, and they're attacking there in the Toulouse 22. So Ulster could be going back to Belfast with a lead in that last 16 tie. We got commentary of Exeter and Munster at 5:30 with Conor Morris and Andy Dunn doing the call. This is Football Saturday. Until then, with David Meyler, Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan. You can text us on 53106. We got a text in here. Hi lads, whilst I find your discussion on Liverpool City very interesting, I must take you up on a comment about either of those two teams to beat United of the early 90s. If the rules of the game as of now are enforced, then probably, but the game back then was 100 times tougher. United would have kicked them from one end of the pitch to the other. Had the pace to catch them on the counter-attacks. You're comparing apples and oranges, not the same game now, says Connor Waterford, who adds, I bet you won't read this out. Now, I think it was Jonathan Lew's article.
He wasn't talking about the teams, he was talking about Norwich. Norwich today would beat the Manchester United team of 30 years ago, and I completely agree with him. The game has radically moved on. I mean, if you watch a Gaelic football game, people will bemoan Gaelic football and say, you know,
Ulster have got to try. They're ahead now, 17-13, Johnny.
Absolutely flying. Cooney missed his last kick. He'll get this one, which would give them an incredible cushion. And you'd imagine with 22 minutes left, they'll score again with an extra man. But yeah, like the games, it just moves on so fast. Like, the game's evolving so fast. Alex Ferguson was talking about Stephen Kenny during the week, and he referenced that. He just said things are changing so quickly that it's hard to kind of evolve, which is something he did as a manager, I think.
But he evolved because he was able to change his coaching staff regularly. That's what I think one of the key things and underplayed things about Ferguson. Steve McLaren, when they won the treble, he had Brian Kidd before that, then Carlos Queiroz
as well.
So I think it was not only reinventing the team, it was reinventing the staff around him. That was crucial. And I think that when I see City and I see Liverpool, I see organisations that are much slicker and light years ahead of what Man United are doing in terms of the people that are around Pep, the people that are around Klopp. Like some of the writing on this game, and like The Athletic, for example, talking about the industry of what's around these managers, and like Pep Linders and Michael Edwards, was it, who I know is leaving now at Liverpool, and all the nuts and bolts that has to go into running a football club successfully. And you'd know, David, having played for clubs, I'm sure, that are well run and well oiled versus clubs that are not. The difference is not about the top man necessarily all the time as well.
No, I look, there was a survey done there after Hull was sold that it was one of the most well-ran clubs out of the 92 in England. And you could see that, okay, if any Hull fan watches that, there was obviously a massive fallout between the owner and the fans. But then I obviously left Hull and I went to Reading, and you could see the problems that lied there. It was something like 42 senior players, far too many players. The club couldn't shift players on. Just created an awful dynamic around the place. And you can see that now. It's been, even as you look at Reading now, the problems are still ongoing. And considering this August, I retired 3 years ago. So that's when I first went, you know. So you can see that. And if a club is well ran, it just gives everyone inside the potential to, you know, go on and do something or be successful. And you can see that certainly with, you know, Liverpool and Manchester City, as opposed to you say Manchester United when they were dominating, because everything was, you know, Sir Alex had control of everything and everything was ran accordingly. And that was the way. It's almost the way clubs need to be going now.
Now stay tuned to our coverage of Sweden against Ireland next Tuesday, including the full build-up to the game across all the OTB channels on Monday and Tuesday with Aisling O'Reilly and Julianne Russell in Sweden, as well as full match commentary with Nathan Murphy and Dora Gorman on Tuesday night, all with thanks to Sky, proud partner of the women's national team. Out-believe together and we can go anywhere. It's Ulster 19, Toulouse 13 in the Champions Cup in France in that first leg. Grand National goes to post at 5:15. We also have in the Premier League, Chelsea 6, Southampton 0. Leeds have scored again, 3-0 away to Watford. Maybe that might make them safe. And Arsenal 0, Brighton 2, a shock score line from the Emirates. You were at Talca Park, as you were saying there last night, Johnny, for Shelbourne and Shamrock Rovers. Aaron Green. 2-1 win.
I spoke about this on Late Night LOI with Shane. And Aaron Green, he used to play for Galway United back in the day, and we would have been a big fan of him as a player because of his qualities. But he got a goal in Europe, JD, and it was against could be Limassol, maybe. Do you remember who that was against, Shane?
No, I can't. I'm trying to think now. No,
Apoel, maybe.
Go on.
You can Google it there, but he got a goal.
Yeah.
And actually, Rovers were in a really good position because they had an extra man, and they went out in the tie, but Jack Byrne played this ball to him, and it was as good a strike as you will see, like top bins. And Aaron Green, an unbelievable goal. And last night was similar, JD. He collected the ball from Danny Mandroyo. Both of them came off the bench and decided with this cracking shot. And his goal conversion rate for the chances he's had for Shamrock Rovers is just, it's so poor because he's one-on-ones and he's missed so many good chances. Despite the fact for Shamrock Rovers, I think in terms of his general play, and he scored goals, he didn't score nearly enough. He's been a really good striker for them. But again, I was thinking this year, like he and Ronan Finn, particularly Aaron Green, I was thinking his legs aren't what they were. I was thinking he's kind of surplus to requirements. Massive goal last night, because if Derry City beat Finn Harps tonight at 5 o'clock, I think it is, that would have meant 8 points that they would have been ahead of Shamrock Rovers. It's a fairly big gap, and you've Jack Byrne, who was sort of, he was kind of on the fringes of the game, did some good things, but he was by no means a central player. And there were some aspects of the game you're like, geez, I'm not sure about Rovers here. I love the experience. So Talca Park was sold out. There was a massive buzz beforehand. The place was rocking when Shelbourne scored. Damien Duff and Joey O'Brien, they just looked like they were totally immersed in it, despite the standards that they've played at in the Premier League or whatever. And it was a great game. But I don't know, Shane, I was thinking like, If Rovers, and considering that they dominated the first hour of the game, if they didn't win that game, you're just sort of thinking, well, 8 points is a lot potentially.
It would. Firstly, the goal was against Limassol, Johnny.
Limassol,
it was, yeah. Look, it would. There's no doubt an 8-point gap would have been extremely difficult for them to start reeling in, even with so much time to go. So it was a huge goal. And I suppose just to build on what you've said there, the brilliant thing about the league this year is that so many teams would, I don't know what the way to describe it is, would regard their club as being in a good place at the moment. There's expectation in probably all bar three of the clubs. Like, there's an expectation amongst Drogheda, Finn Harps and UCD probably just to see if they can avoid relegation. And then outside of that, the other 7 teams will all fancy their chances of at least making Europe, and probably, and 3 or 4 of them obviously will think they'll aim to do even better than that. So there's a real positivity amongst the vast majority of fans heading to games. There's expectation there, so there is. And look, the season is off to a really good start, and you'd love to think that momentum will stay building over the rest of it.
Can I just ask you as well, like what really interests me, JD, is I know you take it when you go to a League of Ireland Premier Division game. Okay, it's not the Premier League, it's not the Champions League, that's fine. But the level of the coaching, JD, like you're looking at it there last night. Like, Rovers had 2 wing backs that were basically playing like strikers at times. They were that high up.
Andy Lyons scored.
Andy Lyons, who was and you're such a good friend of Johnny Lyons, his uncle. I thought Andy Lyons, like his goal was phenomenal. They were so high up the pitch, Shane, and you're looking at like there are
Derry doing the exact same. Johnny Ronan Boyce effectively is doing for them what Andy Lyons is doing. So yeah, again,
and Andy Lyons is playing like, if you were to tell me, JD, that he'd be playing as a left wing back. And like,
he's normally a right-sided player.
He's like, to me, he's looked very right-footed, and his goal was such a good goal. And in the first half, after that, Richie Towell had a very good first half. the Rovers did this brilliant move, and it was like the lads were on about Man City and the game against Chelsea that David played. Like Rovers they passed the ball these little pockets, and Shelbourne they were legless. They left this hole. Ball went to Richie Towell. He was kind of, how will I put Andy Lyons in here? And he dinked this little ball over, and I was like, Andy Lyons is going to score here. And this is one of the best goals I've seen in a long time in the League of Ireland, the pass move, and he just pulled it wide. Andy Lyons in the second half, he dinks this header just wide, and I'm like, where did this come from? He's absolutely reveling in Shane.
He is. Look, we were saying last night, he's a fine player, Johnny. He's probably the one that's kind of really jumping out at the moment in terms of the start of the season. He's, maybe a couple of the Derry boys patching obviously has got off to a great start, but I mean, if you're picking your player of the season at the moment, Lyons is probably taking it, and he just seems to have really taken the Stephen Bradley system, and as we said last night, it must be absolutely gut-wrenching for Bohemians fans to see what he's doing,
It's almost a thing as well, briefly, JD. Like, there were, as I said, Stephen Kenny was there, Jim Crawford was there, Minister Chambers was there, Robert Watt, who's probably quite a famous civil servant. I think he must be a Shells fan. I've seen him at a couple of Shells games. There were all these personalities.
So they're going to invest in Irish football then, huh?
Yeah, well, Dermot Desmond's has invented Rovers. Shells have gotten investment, and I just hope that it stays at a level where last night you could just feel so much part of it. Like, I don't feel any part of Man City the way that they've bought success, however they've managed that. I don't feel any part of that. If I were a young kid growing up in Manchester, maybe I'd support them, but like as I get older, I'm like, well, whereas last night you can relate to it. These are normal people that, like, they're not paid. Ronaldo's on $500,000 a week, it's hard to relate to that, whereas these lads are on modest money, and Damien Duff isn't doing it for the money.
Robert Balakoon's got a hat-trick of tries for Ulster, and that extra man has been a huge boon for them because they lead Toulouse now 24 points to 13 in the Champions Cup, last 16. First leg, he would have got big odds in that today, and Ulster are going to go back to Belfast now with a significant lead and a chance to get to the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup. As an intercept try from Balakoon. Brilliant stuff in the sunshine.
He is quick.
There. He is
seriously quick.
He's a speedster. Arsenal 0. Arsenal just scored, maybe too late, 2-1 now against Brighton at the Emirates Stadium. They pull one back, 90 minutes on the watch. The goal coming from Odegaard. It is Leeds 3, Watford 0. With a goal from Jack Harrison. They should be safe after that result. Chelsea 6, Southampton 0. A good fight back from Chelsea today. In the Championship, Sheffield United 0, Bournemouth 0 a result. Blackburn 1, Blackpool 1 is the latest. Coming up to full time these games. Bristol City 1, Peterborough 1, Middlesbrough 0, Hull 1. It's Millwall 4, Barnsley 1. It's Nottingham Forest 2, Birmingham City 0. Preston 2, QPR 0. Reading 1, Cardiff 2. Swansea 2, Derby 1. And Callum Robinson scored for West Brom, but they trail Stoke by 2-1 in the Championship. In Scotland, Celtic hammered St Johnstone 7-0 this afternoon. Aberdeen 0, Ross County 1 is the latest. Dundee United 2, Dundee 2 in the derby there. The Tay Derby, it is Hearts 3, Hibernian 1 at the moment, and Livingston 2, Motherwell 1. David Meyler, same old Arsenal. I thought they turned the corner, but unless they can get the equaliser, it's same old Arsenal.
It is. Obviously, the disappointing result against Palace. And now today you'd expect a reaction from them. Obviously they were very disappointing. I watched the game against Palace. They had no flow. Like, there was a crazy stat that Lacazette hasn't scored in open play in, I think it's 800 minutes. And obviously that goes on today as their number 9. It's just, the wheels are falling off here. They need to turn around. Obviously Spurs are up now in the next 40 minutes. If they get a result against Aston Villa, then it's going to just look awful for Arteta, especially with not having European football this season. That was kind of like, we can focus on the league, but they need to sort of form out for the remaining games. Otherwise they could curtail off into the Europa League.
Teams are in for that game. Aston Villa, Spurs. Villa, Martinez in goal. Cash, Konza, Mings and Digne. Douglas Luiz, John McGlynn and Coutinho and Ramsey in the middle, and then Watkins and Ings up front, so Ings back in the team. For Spurs, the same team, Lloris, and then the back three of Dyer, Romero and Davies. Matt Doherty on the right of Højbjerg, Bentancur, and then Emerson. Well, actually Doherty will play on the left today, won't he, with Emerson in the team. And then Son, Kulusevski and Kane. I'm actually feeling hopeful, probably for the first time on Off the Ball Saturday since August, Shane Keegan, about Tottenham.
Two things there, JD. Firstly, let's see, can Matt Doherty try give an Andy Lyons style performance coming in off that left. Second thing, before we go on to the game, get onto Twitter, get a look at Kenny's kids, lads. Troy Parrott has scored an absolute peach.
It's
absolute
two in a row.
Oh, it's a cracker. It's a volley coming down out of sky that rockets in off the under part of the crossbar. It's a serious strike. So it is. But yeah, the game itself, big opening now after that result, John. I don't think you did a very good job of disguising your delight there every time you call out the Brighton result. So the door is well and truly open for us. But I suppose we'd be kind of similar to Arsenal fans, wouldn't we? Every time we feel that the door is open, or every time we feel like we're on a run of good form, we feel like that's when we fail to deliver. So fingers crossed we get it right this afternoon.
I'd never be accused of bias in this show. I'm a completely impartial person. David and Shane, thanks so much. David, look, enjoy tomorrow. I know it's a big one for you.
Yeah, I'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch the Australian Grand Prix. Kids are at the in-laws, so I'll watch that. Then I'll watch Norwich and Burnley. Then obviously the big one.
And then the Masters.
Then I'll watch the final of the Masters. Yeah, so
your wife must love you. Your wife must love you.
Hey, do you know what, Johnny? I made it clear from day one. I grew up in a sport, crazy household where sport was always on, and nothing has changed here. If we go out, our Sundays they're shaped around the football. Obviously, my kids are with the in-laws, but there you go.
David, Shane, Johnny, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much, guys. And we got to take a break. We got to go. We got commentary of Exeter and Munster coming up.